Hi, I'm Simon Hartley.
And I'm Helen Martin.
Welcome back to Pep Talks. Helen, you and I have been chatting to business leaders over the past week or so, and there's a question that keeps cropping up. How will the world look on the other side of this? And I know that lots of people are starting to find different ways of working. This is something you guys have been looking at, isn't it?
Sure, yeah. Well, firms have had to create backup teams to ensure continuity in operational functions. In our case, we made sure the original teams and backup teams didn't physically meet. So that they were separated at all times to avoid cross-infection. The immediate priority in this crisis, as you and I have heard several times, was to secure the safety of employees and customers. So that's still what we're kind of focused on. I think the crisis is forcing us to kind of look at that really carefully and make sure whatever role you're playing, that you have that very, very strong sense of making sure there is nothing that you're putting anyone else into danger, or a customer or your colleagues. And that really, the human element of it has been surprising. That's tough. It is tough when you're in a situation or in a location to follow through, and there's a huge trust element of that too. We're expecting that people don't move around at the weekends, that they keep that team safe. So that's worked well, and I think that will work beyond the crisis, that kind of level of thought process.
Yeah. And this question, how will the world look? I think for lots of people that's caused some anxiety because we don't know exactly how the world will look. But I've started to flip the question to how do we want the world to look? And more particularly, how do we want our world to look? Because this is where we start to understand that we have control and we have opportunities. And we can start letting our imagination get to work on, okay, so what opportunities have we got? Maybe to change the way that we've worked. And lots of people, like you say, for all sorts of very good reasons, safety, cash flow, whatever, they've started to change the way they're working. And I think understand that the way that they've now adopted might serve them very well in the future. I know a lot of finance directors and CFOs who have asked the question, why are we paying for all this office square footage? Actually, people are working really well from home now. Do we need to keep paying for all this office square footage? Do we need everybody in the same place at the same time? Because it seems to be working. And do I need to be doing the amount of travel I've been doing? A really good friend of mine said to me after about 3 or 4 days of being in lockdown, he said, I just don't understand why I've been driving the number of miles I have. I've been doing the miles, but I can't get my head around it. I don't know why I've been doing it. Surely there's a way.
Yeah.
But I think even beyond this, there are lots of people now starting to realize that there are opportunities they could unlock. And one of those, I think, is to tweak the business model or adapt the business model, or in some cases, even revolutionize the business model. There are some, I spoke to a friend of mine who works for an organization, and I've done some speaking work with them over the past few years. They help entrepreneurs. They're regionally based. They help entrepreneurs. They've got members who are entrepreneur business owners and founders. And they're starting to ask the question, do we have to be regional? I mean, why do we have to be regional? They have been. I mean, they were established that way. They do networking events, and they hold sessions, conference sessions and workshop sessions. They've got leadership development, and all of them traditionally have been drawing people into the same room. And so they've always imagined themselves as a regional business. And now they're asking, could we be national? Could we be international? What's stopping us? Actually, nothing. I mean, we've been holding all these sessions via video conferencing. They're working really well. So why wouldn't we be national or international? And they're starting actually to see the possibilities. As I kind of described it to somebody the other day, I think the blinkers are just starting to fall off now. And our eyes are becoming a bit more aware and attuned to all of those things that we potentially could do. And lots of people, I think this is quite an eye-opening experience for them, because they're now starting to think in a very different way.
I think the crisis is forcing company owners to communicate differently. You know, they have to have clear and frequent communications with everyone in their company. And before, this would have been happening by email in the past, but take that a step forward to what you're saying. And actually, most managers, or mostly, we get together, I think, for board meetings or quarterly planning sessions. And you're absolutely correct. That could be done equally as well online, because, you know, there's an agenda, there's a structure, and you'll get to the same outcome. I think what people should invest time in post-crisis is when they connect and when they're getting together in a physical location, is really finding out about each other and really finding out, you know, how they're managing, because we forget about that. We forget that that is also hugely important. And I think the CEOs and company owners have really learned that. You know, I think that's the other element of that human aspect. CEOs and all, you know, they want to protect their company, but also the employees want to protect their company, and everybody's in this together. And I think when you come out of this, there's a reason to celebrate that. But you're absolutely correct. The way we've been doing it, where we move around just to kind of sit at a meeting, can absolutely be done equally as well online.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are starting to realize that they've probably taken that face-to-face human contact for granted.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't take it for granted, because it's really important. It's really valuable. And there are times when we do need to do it, but there are probably times where we could just come together for 20 minutes and ask a question on Zoom or another video conferencing platform. And I think the other thing that people are starting to realize is that, you know, the tradition of let's put an hour's meeting in the diary, let's sit in there for an hour, probably not use it very well, and then have another hour's meeting in the diary and do back-to-back meetings all day of an hour in a room with lots of people and draw people from all over the country to come and sit in the same place, probably is defunct now. We've probably moved past that. It probably isn't really serving us in the way that we thought it was. There are other ways of doing it. Equally, I know lots of businesses have started to ask a lot better questions, and they've started to question their business model. So I was chatting to a guy yesterday who's part of an entrepreneurial group that I work with. He's got a digital marketing business, and traditionally he goes into the client. So his clients are usually geographically fairly close to him. He goes in and he works with them. He puts the solutions in place, and he's actually started to ask, do I need to do that? Is that the greatest value I could possibly offer? Could I do it a different way? If I created an online toolbox for these guys to access, and I could enable administrators to actually do the legwork, actually put these things into practice, I could offer far more value just by putting the strategy together. And am I limited by geography? No, I'm absolutely not. So I could probably invest my time far better creating the strategy and helping people work through them and provide them with a set of resources that actually do most of that job for me.
Absolutely.
And it hadn't really occurred beforehand, because we just get into the pattern. You know, we sort of operate on default a lot of times. And that now this is the opportunity, I think, for people to say, there is a different way, probably a better way to do it. And when they flip that forward and ask, what do I want my world to look like? There's a new dynamic now. Instead of probably getting caught up in the anxiety of not knowing what the world will look like, I'm quite excited by the prospects of what I could do.
And I think companies that they're learning fast. Digital marketing is an extremely powerful tool. You know, the way we've used it, and most companies have had to use in the past, is really around promotional content. You know, telling customers what we have, the value. You know, and most companies are the same, but that's had to shift very quickly away from promotional content and onto helpful educational content. And that you really need to have a good digital platform and be used to using these tools to give value to customers. And also, I think we found out that in doing that, we can be good corporate citizens, actually. We're giving something back. I mean, we are doing it with this and giving the opportunity for people to learn about motivation and to, you know, some of this will resonate with every company owner and person. But I think after the crisis, it is reasonable to expect people to want more of that content.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mix, you know, where we normally wouldn't have done that, because it's you know, it's an educational aspect of it that we'd have some part of, but this is really circling your customer in a different way and actually becoming part of their business. And it's just been such a positive experience. So I'm pleased to hear, you know, that guy saying in the future, this is what we should be doing. You know, we should be stepping back and looking at a company and creating a digital strategy that customers want, instead of a digital strategy that is just to keep content going.
Absolutely.
So
And he's starting to realize now that, I mean, really what he does is he helps people who haven't really traded online, or they certainly haven't optimized their online trading, to potentially get started and then to optimize what they're doing. And he's been working with a handful of customers. But actually the opportunity now is to work with an awful lot more customers through this model. So the world is starting to open up in all sorts of ways. His world certainly is opening up. The other really interesting area that I've seen people working, because, as you know, my background is sport and working in elite sport. So I know lots of physiotherapists. Now, traditionally, physiotherapy is done in the same place, and the physiotherapist is very hands-on, literally hands-on, and they've had to flip. So some of them have really embraced the idea that they could do these sessions via some kind of video conferencing platform, and that's great. That's the first step. Some of them have gone a step further and started to understand that there's a new challenge here. People are working from home. And whilst those companies that they work for often have spent a lot of time setting up the workstation so they're ergonomically efficient, so they don't get back pain or repetitive strain injury or whatever, there's now an opportunity to help those companies to set up the workstations at home. So one of the physios I know very well has set up a how to work from home without screwing yourself up system, which they can start to offer corporates. Now, it would never have occurred to her, of course, beforehand, because, well, people weren't working from home quite as much. I mean, they were, but not quite as much. But she was just invested in working hands-on with clients, really seen the opportunity, had those blinkers on, and was just doing what she'd always done. Now, all of a sudden, there's a far, far greater opportunity here from her point of view, grow her business, serve more people. Again, drop the geographical boundaries. You don't have to work with people who are only within a geographical sort of circle of me. I can work with all sorts of people here. So I think lots of people are starting to understand that this situation has given us, yes, challenges, but B, massive opportunities.
Yes, it's that innovation that we were talking about with Sarah, and the judo flip, I'm sure that's what that's called, where you think, I can't do this anymore. But we do forget, companies have a responsibility still, wherever your staff are, to make sure that, they are using the correct tools to do their job, and that they're comfortable and not going to suffer with back pain and things afterwards. So I applaud that, actually. I have seen so many examples of people coming up with ways to do their job, and so they've been so creative. And that's what we've been talking about, actually, not to continually look at what's happening. We understand countries may ease restrictions, and they are doing it at the moment, and then they may be reimposed. So the lessons we're learning now, insofar as how we're coping with this crisis, they will serve as well. If we learn them and we are creative and innovative, they will serve as well for whatever period this takes, and hopefully it won't be the end of the year, or hopefully that won't happen. But if it does, I think everybody is coming up with ways, workarounds that are actually, yes, as you say, we may never go back. Some of it we will, some of it, people will want their normality as they knew it. But some of it, actually, I think we will. We'll absolutely do tremendous things with this time.
Yeah. And when we start thinking in this way, of course, some people have asked, will my customers still be there on the other side of this? And the truth is, some may be, some may not be. Lots of people forget to ask the question, do I actually want to work with these customers? Are these the kind of customers that I want? Are these customers pleasurable to work with? Do they pay us on time, and all those sorts of things? And actually, I know some very good people who sack customers sometimes because they're not great customers. So there's an opportunity to say, well, what kind of customers do I want to work with? Do I want a business of this size or not? Some of the business owners I've been talking to have said, actually, I'd probably trade some turnover to be more profitable. That would give me kind of a better night's sleep on some occasions, and a real sanity check. So what kind of business do I actually want here? This is the business I've got right now because it's sort of grown sometimes it's grown out of almost by default because we haven't been really intentional and deliberate about how we've grown it. But now's the opportunity to ask, what do I want it to look like? And this is where I think if we look at our teams, our customers, our suppliers, all sorts of things, we can start to really look at how we want to build our future, and ask the question, what do we want our world to look like on the other side of this?
Yeah, absolutely. Because actually, we know that you've got to be lean in these times, and that's what, people are trying to do. But also, you rarely get an opportunity like this to step back from your business as well. And I mean, I think that's, albeit forced upon us, and not expected. It is a time to look in and look at it as if it's a startup almost. I think we've spoken about that before. Startup businesses, the people work incredibly hard in it because they are invested completely in it, and they have a vision and a goal of where they want to go. And I think to do that would be incredible. Actually, you will change, as you say. You will definitely come out of it with some new insights and think, actually, this would work better that way. And take this time. I think everybody should take this time. I mean, it's reasonable to expect after this crisis that people and organizations will be different. I think that's a reasonable expectation. And I think in some ways, we've talked about the telemedicine aspect of it, and that I think people will demand improvements in the quality, in not only in those situations, but in whatever they're getting, whoever they're, as you say, with customers, whatever, customers will demand it, and we'll demand it, because people will have to get back on their feet. And that means that everybody looking after each other, the cash flow element of it. I know we're going to talk about that, and we spoke about it with Michael. The cash flow element of it is huge. And that definitely requires everybody to be fair, and a trust element of it, and to want companies to survive, So, I think we're going to want improvements in how we do things. I think that's
That opportunity to step back, I think, is massive. I heard a story of a business. They were founded in 2007, and their aim was to help people to make more of cars. Because they were aware that lots of people, they jump in a car on their own, they have a journey, they come back, and actually the car isn't optimized very much. We built all this infrastructure for roads, and we're not really optimizing the car. If we put 4 people in that car and did the same journey, then surely we'd have to have less cars on the road, burning less fuel, and we could make more out of the cars that we've got and take some of the traffic off the roads. So they were looking at how you do this. And they set up a business in 2007 called Zimride. And they were looking at how you car share across sort of big journeys across the US.
Yeah.
And in 2012, they stopped and they asked themselves a question: if we were to design our business today from scratch, how would it look? Now, in 2007, there weren't really any smartphones. In 2012, smartphones are a thing, and most people have got them. So they said, well, if we designed it today, we'd design it around the smartphone, wouldn't we? And they completely revolutionized their business. They rebranded it, they called it Lyft, and they started to look at, well, how would we design it if we designed it today? That's one of the opportunities, I think, that businesses have got. They might not completely scrap it the way that Zimride did when they changed to Lyft, but there might be things that said, this is the past. All these things that we've got built in here, that's the past. The future looks really different. We wouldn't have those in the future, would we? And that's really the opportunity that I think people have got right now. When they flip the question from what's the world going to look like to what do I want our world to look like?
No, absolutely. I think that's a great example, actually. And there are several of those. I know we've explored some of them, but there are several of those at sharing resources and looking at the best and most efficient. And quite often we're not commercially looking at something. We try it and then we measure it. But I think, when there are so many ways of doing business, and sharing resources and combining roles, as we've said, having that cross training in your company, and just to give you that continuity in case of something happening like this. This is going to be unprecedented, as we know. But I mean, I actually am enjoying, I know the people we've been speaking to, and enjoying hearing what people are doing after that. There's been some amazing, and, you know, I've heard everything from chair yoga to, you know, people taking singing lessons online and things. Just, as you say, that's normally people moving. We always have people moving. And I think, you know, whatever it is that makes that, gives us more time back. We have so much time now at the moment, and using that time. As we've said, you know, if you don't come out of this knowing a new skill or doing something different in your business, you cannot blame time.
Completely. Absolutely.
You didn't use it.
Yeah. Now, you did just mention that we've spoken to some amazing people over the past week or so. We've got some fantastic pep talks coming up. Who have we got coming up? What can we look forward to?
So we have several actually coming up. We have Dr. Todd Hewitt back again. So we've been asked to bring some people back again. Sarah Frasca, again, around innovation and creativity. We have Dominic Colenso, of course, coming back. Communication is huge at the moment, as we know. So we have several more in the pipeline, all with a theme, all with a continued theme to keep us going. We have Sonia Saxon, who really talking around the mindset and how to train our mind not to overload on the amount of information and fear that's out there. That was a really good session. So, lots, really lots to keep going.
Fantastic. So everybody stay tuned in. Thank you very much, Helen. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will see you on another episode of Pep Talks. Take care.